My name is Rebecca Owens, and I never thought I'd be sharing a story that would shake the very foundations of what most people believe about our world and its future. At 52, I was living what appeared to be an ordinary life in suburban Minnesota, working as a high school counselor and raising 2 teenagers with my husband, Mark. Like many, we attended church occasionally, said grace before meals, and I considered myself spiritual but not particularly devout. That all changed after my encounter with death, and, more importantly, with the truth about what's coming to our world. That fateful day began like any other. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of spring flowers and freshly cut grass. I remember thinking about how perfect the weather was as I left my office at Riverside High School. I had just finished a particularly rewarding counseling session with a troubled student, and my heart felt light. If I'd known what was about to happen, perhaps I would have savored those last normal moments more intentionally. The accident itself was both sudden and surreal. I was approaching the intersection of Maple and 5th, just 3 blocks from our house. The traffic light had just turned green, and I proceeded forward, already thinking about the chicken I needed to defrost for dinner. That's when everything changed. A delivery truck, its driver distracted by a phone call, ran the red light at full speed. I remember the screech of tires, the flash of metal, and a strange moment of perfect clarity where time seemed to slow down. I saw the truck's grill coming toward my driver's side door, and I had just enough time to think, this is going to hurt. The impact was devastating. The sound of crushing metal and shattering glass filled my ears, and then silence. Complete and absolute silence. What happened next would forever change my understanding of reality, truth, and the cosmic battle that's about to unfold on Earth. I found myself floating above the accident scene, watching with detached fascination as first responders arrived. It was the strangest sensation, like watching a movie where I was both the audience and the main character. I could see my body slumped over the steering wheel, blood trickling from a gash on my forehead. The paramedics worked with urgent precision, their faces etched with concentration as they carefully extracted me from the wreckage. "No pulse," one of them shouted, immediately beginning chest compressions. I watched as they laid my body on the asphalt, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the scene. A growing crowd of onlookers gathered, their faces a mixture of horror and morbid curiosity. Among them, I recognized Mrs. Henderson from the grocery store, her hand pressed against her mouth in shock. The paramedics continued their efforts, working with practiced efficiency. "Clear!" Another shock from the defibrillator sent my body arching upward, but my heart remained still. Time seemed to lose all meaning as I watched them work, their movements becoming increasingly desperate. That's when everything changed. The accident scene began to fade, like a television signal losing reception, and I felt myself being drawn toward a light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The light was unlike anything I'd ever experienced, not harsh or blinding, but rather a living radiance that seemed to pulse with pure love and intelligence. It filled me with a peace so profound that all earthly concerns simply melted away. As I moved toward the light, I became aware of a presence. No, more than a presence. Standing before me was Jesus Christ himself. And yet, he was nothing like the paintings or statues I'd seen in churches. His appearance defied earthly description. He was both physically present and somehow more than physical, radiating a love so pure and powerful that it brought tears to my eyes. His eyes held an eternity of wisdom, and when he looked at me, I felt completely known, understood, and loved beyond measure. "Rebecca," he spoke, his voice resonating through my very being. "What you are about to witness must be shared with others. The time is shorter than many realize, and my people need to understand what is coming." Taking my hand, Jesus led me through what felt like a veil of pure light. The sensation was extraordinary, like stepping through a waterfall made of living energy. The warmth flowed through every part of my being, and I felt more alive than I ever had in my physical body. As we emerged on the other side, the world around us transformed into what looked like a vast amphitheater of light, where scenes from both present and future played out before us like living holograms. "Watch carefully," Jesus said, his voice carrying both authority and deep compassion. "I will show you the great deception that is coming, how it begins, how it spreads, and how it will attempt to ensnare even my most devoted followers."
The first vision materialized before us in stunning clarity. I saw our world descending into a period of unprecedented crisis. Natural disasters struck with increasing frequency and intensity, earthquakes that shattered cities, floods that swallowed coastlines, and storms that devastated entire regions. But these were just the beginning. These events, Jesus explained, will create the perfect conditions for the deceiver to emerge. People will be desperate for solutions, for someone to restore order from chaos. I watched as a global economic collapse unfolded. Stock markets crashed simultaneously across the world. Digital banking systems failed and currencies lost their value overnight. People who had been wealthy found themselves suddenly destitute. The middle class disappeared almost entirely. Civil unrest erupted in cities across the globe. The scenes were horrifying. Ordinary people fighting over basic necessities, neighborhoods turning into war zones, and governments struggling to maintain order. "Observe carefully," Jesus directed, "how these crises are not random. They are orchestrated, like pieces being moved on a cosmic chessboard." Then I saw him, the one Jesus identified as the Antichrist. He appeared first as a relatively unknown figure in European politics, but his rise to prominence was meteoric. He was unlike any leader I'd ever seen, a man who appeared to be in his early 40s, with features that somehow seemed familiar to people of all ethnicities. His physical appearance was striking, but not overwhelming. It was his presence that captured attention. When he spoke, his voice carried a hypnotic quality that seemed to reach into people's souls. I watched as he addressed the United Nations during the height of the global crisis. His words were masterfully chosen, weaving together themes of unity, peace, and human potential in a way that resonated with everyone, regardless of their background or beliefs. "Pay attention to his words," Jesus instructed. "Notice how he speaks partial truths, but twisted just enough to lead people away from me." I listened as this man spoke about spirituality in a way that seemed to embrace all religions while subtly undermining their core beliefs. He quoted from the Bible, the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, and other religious texts, but always with slight reinterpretations that altered their original meaning. He spoke of Christ, but not as the exclusive way to salvation. He mentioned God, but as an impersonal force rather than a loving Father. The vision shifted, and I saw how this leader began implementing what he called the Global Harmony Initiative. It started with practical solutions to worldwide problems. He introduced new technologies that could purify water instantly, systems that could produce food in any climate, and energy solutions that seemed to defy the laws of physics. These miracles of technology, Jesus explained, will be one of his most powerful tools of deception. People will believe he is solving problems that humanity has struggled with for millennia. I watched as he unveiled a new economic system that promised to eliminate poverty and ensure fair distribution of resources. It began with a global digital currency marketed as a solution to the economic collapse. The system was brilliant in its design. It eliminated corruption, prevented theft, and ensured complete transparency in all transactions. But then Jesus showed me the darker purpose behind these innovations. The economic system became a tool of control. Every transaction, every purchase, every financial decision was tracked and monitored. People's spending habits were tied to their social credit scores, which also factored in their behaviors, relationships, and even their thoughts as expressed on social media. "Watch how the control tightens," Jesus said, directing my attention to how the system evolved. The technology became more invasive with each passing month. What began as convenient digital IDs, cashless payments, biometric security, transformed into a web of surveillance and control. I saw how people initially embraced these changes willingly, even enthusiastically. Who wouldn't want instant access to medical records, seamless travel, and enhanced security? But then I witnessed this subtle shift. The leader began implementing what he called social harmony protocols. Those who criticized this system found their access to services mysteriously restricted. Individuals who questioned official narratives about world events discovered their social credit scores dropping, limiting their ability to travel or make purchases. Notice, Jesus said, how he doesn't need to use obvious force. The system itself becomes the enforcer. I watched in horror as artificial intelligence systems were deployed to analyze people's facial expressions, tone of voice, and online activities. The technology could predict who might resist the new order before they even took action. Those identified as potential disruptors found themselves isolated, their friends and family gradually pulling away, afraid of having their own social scores affected by association. The leader's technological miracles became more dramatic. Through a combination of advanced holographic technology and supernatural power, he appeared to perform incredible feats. I saw him seemingly healing terminal illnesses, controlling weather patterns, and even appearing to raise the dead. The demonstrations were broadcast globally, witnessed by millions. These signs and wonders, Jesus explained, will be so convincing that even many who know Scripture will be deceived. They will say, "Surely this is the one who will bring peace to earth?" But the most chilling aspect was how he began to transform religion itself. He spoke of a new spirituality that would unite all faiths. I watched as he stood in Jerusalem, speaking words that seemed to bridge centuries-old divisions between religions. Muslims, Jews, and Christians found themselves drawn to his message of unity and universal truth. He began rebuilding the temple in Jerusalem, but not as it had been. This new temple was designed to accommodate all faiths, with spaces for various forms of worship. It was an architectural marvel that seemed to defy physics, incorporating materials that changed color and form, responding to the thoughts and emotions of those within. "This is how he will deceive many of my people," Jesus said sadly. "He will not appear to oppose faith. He will seem to fulfill it. Many will believe he is ushering in the kingdom of God on earth." I saw how this leader used advanced neurotechnology to create spiritual experiences. People could put on special devices that triggered profound mystical states, making them feel connected to what they believed was the divine. These experiences were so powerful that many abandoned traditional faith in favor of this new, technologically mediated spirituality. The vision shifted to show me how resistance to his rule would be handled. It was subtle at first. Those who refused to embrace the new system found themselves increasingly isolated. They couldn't buy food in stores, couldn't hold jobs, couldn't access medical care. Their children were barred from schools. But it wasn't presented as persecution. It was all done in the name of public health and safety. The mark he will require, Jesus explained, will seem logical and beneficial. It will be presented as a way to ensure security, health, and prosperity. Many will not recognize it for what it truly is, a pledge of allegiance to his system that separates them from me. I saw how this mark would be implemented, a sophisticated blend of digital identity and biotechnology. It wasn't a crude physical mark, but rather a complex system that integrated with human biology. Those who accepted it gained access to enhanced abilities, improved health, heightened sensory experiences, and a direct neural interface with the global digital network. The vision continued as Jesus showed me how the deception would affect families and communities. I watched scenes of heartbreaking division unfold, parents turning against children, siblings severing ties, lifelong friendships dissolving. What made it most painful was how those who accepted the system truly believed they were doing the right thing. "Many will betray their own loved ones," Jesus said, his voice filled with sorrow, believing they are helping them by reporting their dangerous beliefs. I witnessed how churches would be transformed. Many abandoned traditional doctrine in favor of the new leader's enlightened interpretation of Scripture. Pastors who embraced this new spirituality saw their congregations grow exponentially, while those who resisted found themselves labeled as extremists and hate groups. The leader's influence reached into every aspect of society. Education was completely reimagined, with children being taught from an early age about the benefits of complete integration with the global system. History was rewritten, not through obvious lies, but through subtle reinterpretations that painted all exclusive truth claims as sources of humanity's problems. "Watch how he uses peace as a weapon," Jesus directed, drawing my attention to international events. I saw this leader broker seemingly impossible peace deals in conflict zones that had known nothing but war for generations. He resolved the Israeli-Palestinian conflict with a solution that appeared to satisfy both sides. Nuclear weapons were dismantled worldwide under his supervision. Military forces were reorganized into a global peacekeeping organization under his direct control. But then Jesus showed me what was happening beneath the surface. The peace was enforced through complete surveillance and control. Every person's thoughts, words, and actions were monitored and scored. Those who maintained harmful beliefs, such as the exclusive claims of Christianity, were identified as potential threats to global harmony. "This is how the persecution will begin," Jesus explained, "not with outright violence, but with the quiet elimination of those who hold to the truth." I watched as resistance to the system became nearly impossible. The digital currency couldn't be avoided. All other forms of exchange were eliminated. The surveillance was ubiquitous, even in private homes. AI systems monitored conversations and behaviors. The social pressure was immense. Those who refused to conform found themselves completely isolated from society. Yet in the midst of this darkness, Jesus showed me something beautiful. Small communities of true believers who maintained their faith. They found ways to support each other, sharing resources and encouraging one another. Though they faced increasing persecution, their faith grew stronger rather than weaker. "These are my faithful ones," Jesus said with love in his voice. "They recognize the deception because they truly know me. Their strength comes not from themselves, but from my spirit within them." Then Jesus showed me how the leader's true nature would eventually be revealed. After consolidating his power and eliminating all serious opposition, his message of tolerance and unity would give way to demands for absolute worship. Those who had accepted his mark and his system would find themselves trapped, their very minds and bodies bound to his control through the technology they had willingly embraced. "The time to prepare is now," Jesus said urgently. "Once the deception is fully implemented, it will be nearly impossible to resist without complete faith in me." He showed me how people could prepare not through stockpiling supplies or building bunkers, but through developing an unshakable relationship with him. Those who truly knew his voice, who had hidden his word in their hearts, who had learned to rely on his spirit, these were the ones who would recognize the deception. As my time with Jesus drew to a close, he showed me one final series of visions, glimpses of hope amidst the darkness to come. I saw small groups of believers meeting in homes, their faith burning brighter despite the persecution. They had a peace that defied understanding, even as the world around them descended into carefully orchestrated chaos. "Remember these scenes," Jesus said, his voice filled with both authority and tenderness. "The victory is already won. Though the battle will be fierce, those who stay faithful to me will find strength they never knew they had." Then he turned to me, his eyes penetrating my very soul. "Adriana, you must share what you have seen. Tell them that the deception will be subtle. It will come wrapped in promises of peace, prosperity, and unity. Tell them that technology will be used to mimic miracles, making many believe they are seeing the hand of God when they are seeing only carefully crafted illusions." "How will they believe me?" I asked, overwhelmed by the weight of this responsibility. "Some will not," he replied gently. "But those whose hearts are prepared will recognize the truth in your words. They will understand that what you have seen aligns with what is written in my word. The warning you carry may save many from the great deception to come." Jesus then showed me specific signs to watch for: the rapid advancement of neural interface technology, the push for a unified global digital currency, the development of AI systems that can predict and influence human behavior, and the emergence of enhanced spiritual experiences through technology. These developments are not evil in themselves, he explained, but they will be used to create a system of control that appears beneficial while binding people's very souls to the deceiver. Before I could ask more questions, I felt a shift in the atmosphere. The light began to change, and I knew my time was drawing to a close. Jesus placed his hands on my shoulders, and his final words burned themselves into my memory. Tell them that I love them with an everlasting love. Tell them that no technology, no system, no deception can separate them from me if they hold fast to the truth. The time is short, and the deception will be strong, but I will never leave nor forsake those who are truly mine. Suddenly, I felt myself being pulled back. The magnificent light began to fade, and distant voices started calling my name. The return to my body was jarring, like being plunged into ice water. I gasped as my eyes flew open, finding myself in the hospital room, surrounded by medical equipment and shocked faces. I had been clinically dead for 4 minutes and 17 seconds. The medical staff called it a miracle. They couldn't explain how I had survived without brain damage after being without oxygen for so long. But I knew it was more than a medical miracle. It was a divine appointment, a mission given to me by Jesus himself. The months since my experience have been both challenging and transformative. Some dismiss my story as a hallucination, a product of a dying brain. Others listen with rapt attention, sensing the ring of truth in my words. I've watched as events Jesus showed me begin to unfold. The rapid advancement of technology, the push for global unity at any cost, the subtle erosion of absolute truth. Every day I see signs of the coming deception taking shape. The foundations are being laid through seemingly beneficial innovations. Digital IDs, cashless payments, neural interfaces, AI systems that can read and influence human behavior. Each development brings us closer to the system I was shown. But I also see hope in small groups and quiet conversations. I share my story and watch as understanding dawns in people's eyes. They begin to recognize the patterns, to understand the importance of building their faith on the solid foundation of knowing Jesus personally, rather than just knowing about him. My experience changed everything about how I live. Faith is no longer a casual part of my life, but the very center of it. Every day, I thank God for the second chance I've been given and for the opportunity to share this urgent warning with others. My prayer is that those who read this will take it to heart and draw closer to Jesus while there is still time. For those who doubt my story, I can only say this: watch and pray. Pay attention to the signs Jesus revealed. The deception is coming, but so is he. And in that truth lies our ultimate hope and victory. The time for fence-sitting is over. The choice before us is clear. Will we build our lives on the unchanging truth of Jesus Christ, or will we be swept away by the coming deception? The answer to that question will determine not just our earthly fate, but our eternal destiny.
Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, inspired you, or gave you a deeper sense of hope, consider subscribing to this channel. By doing so, you'll join a community of faith, encouragement, and shared stories. Remember, God sees your steps of faith, and as you seek him, his blessings and guidance will abound in your life. Hit the subscribe button, like this video, and share it with others who need to hear this message. Together, let's spread his light and love to the world. God bless you.